Will you be my date to my boyfriend's wedding? I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who crashes a funeral. But there, I stood in the marble cold of Seoul's most exclusive memorial hall, clutching a manila folder like it was evidence in a murder trial. 48 hours until they buried him. 48 hours until Ji-Hoon Kim's empire would be carved up and distributed to vultures in expensive suits. The funeral notice had arrived at my Las Vegas office via courier, black-bordered, tasteful, devastatingly final. They wanted me there, not to mourn, but to witness my own erasure. For 3 years, I'd been the invisible architect behind Julian Reeves's meteoric rise in Vegas tech betting, the strategist who navigated legal minefields while he collected awards. Then Sophia Moretti entered his world. And I became a liability with a severance check and an NDA. But this funeral invitation? This was something else entirely. The man in the photograph looked like he'd been carved from shadows and smoke. Ji-Hoon Kim, reclusive billionaire CEO of Solace Corp. Long dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes that seemed to see through walls. Dead at 42, according to every major news outlet. Heart attack during a private meeting in Singapore. Except I knew something they didn't. I'd spent 72 hours cross-referencing shell companies, buried SEC filings, and offshore transaction patterns. The kind of deep-dive analysis that had made me invaluable to Julian before he decided I was disposable. And every thread led to the same impossible conclusion. Ji-Hoon Kim had faked his own death. And Julian Reeves, my ex, Sophia Moretti's soon-to-be husband, was somehow at the center of it. I'd been watching the funeral preparations from the hotel across the street, building my nerve, rehearsing my insane theory. What kind of desperate woman flies to Seoul to interrupt a billionaire's memorial service? The kind who wakes up at 3 a.m. realizing her career was destroyed not by incompetence, but by corporate espionage. The kind who found encrypted emails on an old shared drive that connected Julian to intellectual property theft from Solace Corp. The kind who understands that if Ji-Hoon Kim faked his death, someone was about to pay a price that made bankruptcy look like mercy. The memorial hall smelled of white lilies and old money. I approached the closed casket, my heels clicking against marble like a countdown. But security watched me with professional disinterest, just another corporate mourner paying respects. I opened the folder. Inside, every piece of evidence connecting Julian to the Solace Corp breach. Transaction records, forged signatures, communications with Sophia's family that suggested the Moretti casino empire wasn't just Julian's new in-laws, they were his partners in theft. He's not dead. The words escaped before I could stop them. Too loud, too sharp. Heads turned. Security stiffened. Then the casket opened, and Ji-Hoon Kim sat up like a king rising from a throne, his long hair falling over his shoulders, his dark suit immaculate, his eyes locking onto mine with recognition that made my breath stop. "Rosette Carter," he said, his voice cutting through the gasps and chaos. I've been waiting for someone smart enough to figure it out. If you're ready to see how a funeral becomes a corporate execution, hit subscribe. Drop your city below. I want to know where my detective minds are watching from. Team, I knew he wasn't dead, or team, that plot twist hit different. Let's talk in the comments. But to understand why a dead man knew my name, you have to go back 3 years. Back to when I was still naive enough to believe brilliance mattered more than bloodline. Back to when I met Julian Reeves and made the mistake of building a king without securing my own throne. I was 26 when I walked into Apex Strategies, a boutique consulting firm that specialized in the gray areas where tech met gambling. Vegas was hungry for legitimacy, and I was hungry for purpose. Julian was the golden boy, Stanford MBA, family connections that opened doors I didn't know existed. A charm that made investors write checks before reading contracts. He needed a strategist, someone who could navigate the legal minefields of predictive betting algorithms without triggering federal scrutiny. Someone who understood that in Vegas, the house always wins because the house writes better rules. I was that someone. For 18 months, we were unstoppable. I built the frameworks. He sold the vision. Every regulatory loophole I found, every compliance structure I designed, every risk assessment that kept us millimeters from illegal, it all had my fingerprints. But only his signature. I told myself it didn't matter. We were a team. Partnership wasn't about credit. It was about results. And then Sophia Moretti walked into our offices wearing a smile that cost more than my education and carrying her family's casino legacy like a crown. Julian's eyes changed that day. Not slowly, instantly. Like he'd been waiting for permission to want something I could never be. Old money, East Coast pedigree. A last name that opened doors I'd spent years trying to pick locks on. 3 months later, Julian called me into his office. Professional, distant, the warmth I'd trusted had evaporated like desert rain. He handed me documents, severance, NDA, a lawyer's number if I had questions. His family had expectations, he explained. The Moretti merger required certain optics. I was brilliant, he assured me, but I didn't fit the narrative they were building. I signed because I was too shocked to fight. Took the check because I had rent. I'd read the NDA 12 times looking for escape clauses that didn't exist. But I didn't delete the shared drives. Didn't surrender the admin access he'd forgotten I had. Didn't stop being the strategist who saw patterns others missed. That's how I found the Solus Corp breach, buried in metadata, hidden in routine file transfers. Julian had taken everything I taught him about exploiting systems and turned it into theft. Sophisticated, layered, almost beautiful in its complexity. Almost. The digital trail led to shell companies that connected to the Moretti family. To Sophia's uncle, who sat on 3 casino boards and 2 tech acquisition firms. To merger documents that valued stolen intellectual property at 8 figures. Julian hadn't just replaced me, he'd weaponized me. Every strategy I'd designed to protect clients, he'd reverse-engineered to rob them. I'd been the blueprint for his betrayal. And Ji-Hoon Kim, ghost CEO, shadow billionaire, the man now rising from a casket, had been watching the whole time. The memorial hall erupted. Security rushed forward. Cameras flashed. Important people in expensive grief stumbled backward like they'd seen something unholy. But Ji-Hoon Kim didn't flinch. He rose from that casket with the fluid grace of someone who'd orchestrated every second of this chaos. Long dark hair fell past his shoulders, immaculate despite 3 days of supposed death. His suit was charcoal perfection, not a wrinkle, not a thread out of place. He looked like a king returning from exile or a demon keeping a promise. His eyes locked onto mine. Dark. Assessing. All hungry in a way that had nothing to do with desire and everything to do with recognition. Clear the room. 2 words, barely above speaking volume. But every security guard, every mourner, every corporate vulture moved. Some hesitated, none stayed. Within 90 seconds, the memorial hall was empty, except for us and the ghost of his supposed death. I should have run. Should have dropped the folder and fled back to Vegas and obscurity. Instead, I stood there, paralyzed by the weight of his attention. He stepped out of the casket, moved toward me with the deliberate patience of a predator who knew his prey had nowhere to go. Each footstep echoed against marble. Each second stretched into eternity. Rosette Carter, my name again, but different this time. Tasting it, testing it. You're the only person in 3 countries who figured it out. 62 hours from death announcement to funeral crash. Impressive. You knew I'd come. I hoped. He stopped 3 feet away. Close enough that I could see the calculation in his eyes, the dangerous intelligence that built empires in shadows. Hope and certainty are different animals. You could have ignored the invitation. Could have assumed it was administrative error. Could have stayed in Vegas and pretended Julian's betrayal was just personal. But you knew I wouldn't. I knew you were too smart to let theft disguised as love go unpunished. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he'd been solving for years. You built Julian Reeves's entire operation, every legal framework, every compliance structure, every strategy that kept him profitable. He stole from me using systems you designed. Tell me, Rosette, did you know what he was doing, or were you just the weapon he learned to aim? The question landed like accusation and absolution simultaneously. My throat tightened. The folder in my hands suddenly weighed nothing and everything. I didn't know. The words came out rougher than intended. Not until 2 weeks ago when I found the transaction patterns. By then he'd already erased me. Severance. NDA. A lawyer's warning about violating non-disclosure. But you violated it anyway. Not a question. A statement of fact that carried approval. He used me to rob you. I don't care about the NDA. Ji-Hoon smiled. It was the kind of smile that preceded calculated violence. Good. Because you're about to violate it much further. He gestured toward a side room. Private. Away from the main hall where staff would eventually return. And I followed because refusing felt more dangerous than compliance. Also because some self-destructive part of me needed to know what came next. The room was elegant brutality. Dark wood, minimal furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline, a chess set on a glass table, mid-game, abandoned or paused. Sit. I sat. He remained standing, creating power dynamic through simple geography. Julian Reeves stole 18 months of AI development from a Soulless subsidiary. Architecture for predictive algorithms that would revolutionize casino operations. He sold it to the Moretti family disguised as independent innovation. They're planning to patent it next quarter, effectively stealing billions in future revenue. I know. I opened the folder, spread the evidence across the table between us. I have the communications. The shell company transactions, the forged development timelines, everything. He picked up a document. Read it with the focus of someone who'd seen it before. You're very thorough. It's what made me valuable before it made me disposable. You're not disposable, Rosette. You're dangerous. He set the paper down. Julian knows that. It's why the NDA had financial penalties that would bankrupt you. Why Sophia's family has lawyers monitoring your digital footprint. Why you received an invitation to my funeral. They wanted you here, visible, on camera, so they could demonstrate you're unstable if you ever tried to expose them. Ice crawled up my spine. This was a trap. For them, yes. For you? He moved closer, sat on the edge of the table, invading my space with deliberate intention. That depends on what you do next. What do you want from me? Everything Julian took. His reputation. His merger, his future with the Moretti family, his belief that he's smarter than the systems he exploited. Ji-Hoon's voice dropped lower, intimate and lethal. I want to dismantle him so completely that his name becomes a warning. And I want you to help me do it. Why me? Because you know how he thinks. You built the framework he's still using. You understand his patterns, his vulnerabilities, his arrogance. He leaned forward. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably had a French name I couldn't pronounce. Also, because you want this as much as I do. Maybe more. He was right. God help me. He was right. The rage I'd been suppressing for 14 months surged forward. Julian had stolen my work, my trust, my future. That he'd made me collateral damage in his ambition. What's the plan? Ji-Hoon smiled again. This time it was almost genuine. He's getting married in 3 weeks. Caesar's Palace, 500 guests, every tech and casino executive in the Western Hemisphere. It's supposed to be his coronation, the moment he becomes untouchable. You're going to destroy him at his own wedding. We are going to destroy him at his wedding. But first, we need to make sure everyone believes I'm dead a little longer. And we need to ensure you're exactly where Julian doesn't expect you to be. Where's that? On my arm, as my date, as the woman who's about to remind him that some thefts have consequences. I should have said no. Should have taken my evidence to federal prosecutors and let bureaucracy handle revenge. and should have walked away from the obvious danger of partnering with a man who faked his death for corporate warfare. Instead, I heard myself say, "What do I get out of this?" Ji-Hoon's expression shifted. Appreciation, respect, something darker that I didn't have a name for yet. "What do you want?" "My reputation back. My name on the work I created. Julian's admission that he built his empire on my foundation." "Done." "What else?" The question surprised me. "What else is there?" "Rosette." He said my name like he was teaching me a lesson. "You didn't fly to Seoul just to clear your name. You came because you're tired of being invisible, tired of brilliant men taking credit for your intelligence, tired of being told you don't fit the narrative." He stood, walked to the windows. "I'm offering you more than revenge. I'm offering you visibility. A partnership. The kind of power that makes men like Julian irrelevant. In exchange for what? Your expertise, your strategic mind, your willingness to play a role that will require you to be someone you've never been before." He turned back. "For 3 weeks, you'll be my companion, my equal in public, my co-conspirator in private. You'll attend events at my side. You'll let Julian see that you didn't just survive his betrayal, you evolved beyond it. You want me to pretend we're together. I want you to help me execute the most satisfying corporate destruction in modern history. The relationship we present to the world is theater. But the partnership?" He moved closer again. "That's real. And after the wedding? After Julian's destroyed? You'll have options. A position at Solus Corp if you want it. Recommendation letters that open doors you've never imagined. Or," he paused, "you walk away clean, reputation restored, with enough leverage to build whatever empire you choose." It sounded too good, too easy, too perfectly tailored to every fantasy I'd had during sleepless nights after Julian's betrayal. "What's the catch?" "The catch," Ji-Hoon said quietly, "is that you'll have to trust me. Completely. There will be moments when my decisions won't make sense, when the plan seems to be failing, when you'll want to run. But if you break, if you hesitate, if you expose us before the trap closes, Julian wins, the Morettis win, and you become exactly what they've already claimed you are, bitter, unstable, desperate. And if I succeed, then you become the woman who helped bring down a dynasty, and the strategist who outmaneuvered everyone who underestimated her." He extended his hand. 3 weeks, 1 wedding, total destruction. "Are you in?" I looked at his hand, at the choice between safety and revenge, between obscurity and vindication. I thought about Julian's dismissive explanation, Sophia's satisfied smile. 3 years of my brilliance credited to someone else. I took Ji-Hoon Kim's hand. His grip was firm, final, a contract signed in touch instead of ink. "Good," he said, "because your flight back to Vegas leaves in 2 hours. You're going to return home, continue your normal life, and wait for my instructions. Julian can't know we've met. No one can. You'll receive a package next week, everything you'll need for the role you're about to play." "What role?" His smile was pure darkness. "You're the woman who's moved on so completely that she makes Julian question every choice he's ever made. The woman who proves that being discarded was his loss, not yours. The woman who walks into his wedding wearing power like a weapon. And you'll be the man at your side who makes him realize exactly how small his world really is." He released my hand. The warmth of his touch lingered like a promise or a threat. "One more thing, Rosette." He walked toward the door. "When you board that plane, when you return to Vegas, when you see Julian's engagement photos plastered across social media, remember this feeling. The rage, the hunger, the certainty that you deserve better. Because in 3 weeks, when we walk into that ballroom together, that feeling is the only thing that will make this believable." Then he was gone. It disappeared into Seoul's corridors like the ghost he was supposed to be. And I stood there, holding evidence of corporate espionage, having just agreed to partner with a dead man for revenge. The funeral was over. The game had begun. Vegas greeted me with its usual indifference. Neon lights, desert heat, the relentless hum of slot machines promising fortunes they'd never deliver. I returned to my apartment, modest, functional, the kind of space that screamed temporary even after 3 years, and waited. Ji-Hoon's instructions were clear. Normal life, no contact. Wait for the package. So I waited. I went to the gym, bought groceries, smiled at neighbors who didn't know my name, scrolled past Julian's engagement photos on social media, him and Sophia on some European yacht, her hand displaying a ring that could fund a small nation, and his smile so confident it made my teeth ache. The comments were predictable. Power couple. So happy for you both. When's the wedding? 3 weeks. That's when. I didn't like the photos, didn't comment, didn't exist in their digital universe. But I screenshot every single one, studied them like battle plans. Sophia's possessive hand on his chest, Julian's careful angles that made him look taller, more important. The yacht's name visible in the background, Moretti Fortune. Everything was a statement. Everything was strategy. They thought they'd won. The package arrived on day 6. No return address. Black box. Heavy. I opened it on my kitchen counter, hands steadier than they should have been. Inside, a phone. Sleek, encrypted. One contact saved J.H.K. Underneath the phone, a smaller box. I opened it and forgot how to breathe. Address. Midnight blue silk that caught light like water. The kind of garment that cost months of rent and knew it. Elegant, powerful, devastating. Exactly my size. A note in precise handwriting. For the woman who's done being invisible. Your flight leaves Friday. 6 p.m., first class. Don't pack much, everything you need will be waiting. J.H. I ran my fingers over the silk, felt its weight, its promise. This wasn't just a dress, it was armor disguised as beauty. My phone, my real phone, buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You look good in blue. Trust me. I spun around, checked windows, looked for cameras, nothing. But he was watching. Somehow. From Seoul or a satellite or hell itself, Ji-Hoon Kim was watching. I grabbed the encrypted phone. Typed, "How did you know my size?" Response came in seconds. "I know everything about you. A rosette. Your coffee order. Your running route. The way you bite your lip when you're calculating odds. I've been studying you since Julian first submitted your risk assessment framework to a conference I sponsored. You were brilliant then. You're dangerous now. Don't be late Friday." The phone went dark. No way to respond. No way to demand answers. I should have been terrified. Should have recognized this for what it was. Obsession dressed as partnership. Control masquerading as collaboration. Instead, I felt seen. For 3 years, I'd been invisible. The strategist behind the curtain, the architect with no blueprints bearing her name. Julian had taken my visibility and sold it for social capital. But Ji-Hoon had been watching. Not just since Seoul, since the beginning. He'd seen my work when Julian claimed it. I recognized my intelligence when others ignored it. And now he was offering me something more dangerous than revenge. He was offering me resurrection. Friday arrived wrapped in Vegas heat and my own doubts. I packed light, toiletries, basics, the screenshot folder of Julian's engagement photos. Everything else Ji-Hoon promised would be waiting. I had to trust him. Trust. Such a fragile concept for someone who'd been betrayed by the last man she'd given it to. The first-class lounge was empty at 6. I checked in using credentials that appeared on the encrypted phone that morning. The gate agent's eyes widened when she scanned my boarding pass. "Ms. Carter, you've been upgraded to a private cabin. Enjoy your flight. Private cabin, not first class, something beyond it." I boarded through a separate jetway. The cabin was luxury refined to its essence. Leather seats that converted to beds, ambient lighting, champagne chilling in a bucket I hadn't requested. And on the seat, another box. Inside, a tablet. Single file loaded. Video. I pressed play. Ji-Hoon appeared on screen. Same immaculate suit, same penetrating gaze, but his setting was different. Modern office, floor-to-ceiling windows showing Seoul's nightscape. Rosette. If you're watching this, you made the choice I hoped you'd make. Before we proceed, you need to understand the full scope of what we're doing. He leaned forward. Julian didn't just steal from Solus Corp. He's been feeding proprietary information to the Moretti family for 18 months. They've used it to gain advantages in 7 different casino technology bids. The theft isn't millions. It's billions in projected revenue. My stomach dropped. But that's not the worst part. His expression darkened. The Morettis aren't just a casino family anymore. They've been laundering money for organizations that make traditional crime families look like charity operations. Julian's algorithms, your algorithms, the predictive models you designed, they're not just for gambling odds. They're being used to move money across borders, to predict law enforcement patterns, to optimize illegal operations. The screen showed documents, transaction flows, names I recognized from news reports about organized crime. And there, buried in the metadata, my coding signature, my frameworks, my intelligence weaponized for something I'd never intended. Julian turned you into an accomplice without your knowledge. The Morettis have documentation that ties you to their operations. If this goes to trial, you're not just a victim of corporate theft. You're a potential co-conspirator. I couldn't breathe. The cabin felt smaller. The champagne mocked me. That's why this isn't just revenge, Rosette. It's survival. We need to dismantle their entire operation before they decide you're a liability. The wedding isn't just theater. It's the moment when every major player in their network will be in one place, celebrating, distracted, vulnerable. He paused. Let that sink in. When you land in Seoul, you'll be briefed on your role. But understand this, we're not going to that wedding to embarrass Julian. We're going to trigger a controlled collapse that will expose the Morettis, protect you from prosecution, and ensure that everyone who weaponized your brilliance pays for it. The video ended. I sat in that private cabin, 30,000 feet above the Pacific, holding evidence that my entire life was more precarious than I'd imagined. Julian hadn't just broken my heart. He'd made me a criminal without my consent. And Ji-Hoon wasn't offering revenge. He was offering immunity disguised as partnership. The plane leveled off. The flight attendant brought champagne I didn't order. I drank it anyway, tasted expensive and bitter. My encrypted phone lit up. Still in? I looked out the window, saw nothing but darkness and distant stars. Thought about Julian's smile in those engagement photos. Thought about Sophia's ring. Thought about the algorithms I'd designed being used to fund operations that destroyed lives. I typed back. Tell me what you need me to do. Response. Be ready to become someone you've never been before. Seoul in 11 hours. Sleep if you can. You'll need it. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Instead, I studied every document on the tablet, memorized names, faces, connection patterns. The scope of the Moretti operation was staggering, and Julian was right at the center, using my work as the foundation. By the time we landed, I wasn't just angry anymore. I was lethal. Seoul's private airport terminal was glass and steel efficiency, no customs line, no baggage claim chaos, just a black car waiting and a driver who knew my name. We drove through the city in silence. Morning light painted the skyline gold. I'd been here once before for the funeral that wasn't. Now I was returning as something else, someone else. And the car stopped at a building that didn't advertise its purpose. Modern, secure. The kind of place where important people made important decisions away from cameras. Inside, a woman waited. Late 40s, elegant in a way that suggested former model or diplomat. She introduced herself as Min Ji, head of Ji-Hoon's personal staff. Ms. Carter, we've been expecting you. Please, follow me. She led me through corridors that smelled of money and power. We stopped at a suite that was less hotel room and more luxury apartment, Bedroom, living space, office setup with multiple monitors. Mr. Kim will join you this evening. Until then, we'll prepare you. Min-ji gestured to a team waiting in the living area. Stylist, image consultant, security briefing. You have 6 hours to become the woman who walks into Julian Reeves's world and burns it down. And the transformation was methodical, clinical. They didn't ask my preferences. They sculpted me into a weapon. Hair first. My natural curls were shaped, defined, given products that made them gleam like silk, not straightened, enhanced. Made deliberately, unapologetically textured. Then makeup. The artist studied my face like a canvas. "You have strong features," she said in accented English. "We don't hide them. We emphasize, make them unforgettable." When she finished, I looked like myself amplified. Dangerous. The kind of beautiful that made people stop and reconsider their assumptions. The stylist brought clothes, not just the blue dress, but an entire wardrobe. Each piece carefully selected. "Power dressing," she explained. "Every outfit tells a story. You're not trying to fit in. You're making everyone else irrelevant." By hour 4, I stood in front of a mirror and didn't fully recognize myself. Same face, same body. But the woman staring back had presence I'd never claimed before. Min-ji appeared behind me. "Good. You look like someone who belongs at his side." "Whose side? Ji-Hoon's or Julian's?" She smiled. "Razor sharp. The side of power, Ms. Carter. That's the only side that matters." The security briefing came next. A man built like tactical precision walked me through protocols. "You'll wear this." He handed me a bracelet. Delicate, expensive-looking, GPS tracker, panic button, recording device. If anything goes wrong, we'll know immediately. What could go wrong? The Morettis are paranoid and well-connected. Julian might try to have you removed. Sophia's family has security that doesn't ask questions. And he paused. "Mr. Kim has enemies who would very much like to know he's alive. You're walking into a situation where everyone has something to hide and everything to lose. Comforting. It's not meant to be comfortable. It's meant to keep you alive." When they finally left, I sat alone in that suite and processed everything. The dress hanging in the closet, the bracelet on my wrist, the woman in the mirror who looked capable of anything. My encrypted phone buzzed. The lobby. Now. I took the elevator down. The doors opened to reveal Ji-Hoon standing in the center of the marble floor, backlit by sunset through floor-to-ceiling windows. He'd changed since Seoul, hair still long but pulled back. Different suit, darker, sharper. He looked like old money and new danger. His eyes found me. Held. Something flickered across his expression, approval, hunger. On calculation. All 3 and none of them. "Rosette." He said my name like he was tasting wine. "You look weaponized?" I was going to say devastating. But yes, that too. He moved closer. Circled me slowly. Professional assessment that felt anything but. They did excellent work. "You'll make Julian forget how to breathe." "That's the plan?" "Part of it." He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne again. That same dark, expensive scent. "The other part is making everyone at that wedding wonder who you are and why they didn't know about you before. And what's your role in this theater? The man who saw your value when everyone else was blind. The partner who treats you like the equal you've always been." He extended his hand. "Shall we practice?" He led me to a private dining room. Table set for 2. Candles, wine. The kind of intimate setting that would photograph beautifully if anyone was watching. "We need to be believable," Ji-Hoon explained, pulling out my chair. "Julian will scrutinize every interaction. He'll look for cracks, for proof that this is performance. So we practice until it's not." I sat. He moved to his seat with liquid grace. Poured wine without asking if I wanted it. Rule 1, we touch naturally. Hand on your back when we enter rooms, fingers brushing when passing objects. Nothing excessive, but enough to signal intimacy. He demonstrated, reaching across the table to adjust my napkin. His fingers grazed my wrist. Brief, electric. Rule 2. We have history. Private jokes, shared glances, moments that suggest we know each other in ways others don't. His eyes held mine. Think of something that makes you genuinely smile. Something Julian never knew about you, I thought. Landed on truth. I paint. Late at night when I can't sleep. Abstracts mostly. No one knows. I never told Julian because he didn't think hobbies were productive. Ji-Hoon's expression softened. Barely. Show me sometime. After this is over. You're serious. I told you this partnership is real. The relationship we're presenting is theater, but the respect, the recognition of who you actually are, that's not pretend, Rosette. The way he said it made my chest tight, made me want to believe him, made me remember that wanting to believe someone was how I'd ended up here in the first place. Rule 3, he continued. We protect each other. If Julian corners you, I intervene. If the Morettis get aggressive, you signal me. We're a unit. That's not negotiable. And what happens at the wedding? When we spring whatever trap you've planned? Ji-Hoon leaned back, swirled his wine. We walk into that ballroom on the night before the ceremony. The rehearsal dinner, 500 guests watching Julian play the perfect groom. And we destroy that illusion with one revelation after another. How? First, we expose the stolen algorithms. I've prepared a presentation that will play during the cocktail hour. Your work, properly credited, showing exactly how Julian built his empire on your foundation. Every executive in that room will see it. He'll deny it. He will, until the second revelation, documentation showing his sale of that same technology to the Morettis for their less-than-legal operations. Complete with communications, transaction records, his digital signature on agreements that implicate him in money laundering. My breath caught. You'll destroy his career. We'll destroy his career. And his engagement. Because the third revelation is the piece Sophia's family doesn't know. Julian has been skimming from the operations, taking cuts that bypass Moretti oversight. He's been stealing from both sides. They'll kill him. No. Ji-Hoon's smile was ice. They'll do something worse. They'll make him irrelevant. Strip his assets, blacklist him from every legitimate and illegitimate operation in the Western Hemisphere. Julian will live, but he'll spend the rest of his life being exactly what he made you, invisible. The poetry of it was vicious, perfect. And me? Where do I stand when this happens? Next to me, under Solus Corp's protection. With documentation showing you were an unwitting participant whose work was stolen and misused. The immunity deal is already structured. You'll be untouchable. Why? The question burst out. Why go to these lengths for someone you don't know? What do you really get out of this? Ji-Hoon set down his wine, stood, walked around the table to where I sat, looked down at me with an intensity that made the room feel smaller. I told you in Seoul, I've been watching you for 3 years, reading your work, tracking your career, watching Julian take credit for brilliance that was never his. I built Solus Corp by recognizing talent others overlook, by finding the strategists who operate in shadows and pulling them into light. He crouched beside my chair. Eye level now. Dangerous proximity. You asked what I get out of this? I get the satisfaction of watching a thief pay for his crimes. I get the corporate advantage of destroying a competitor who thought he was untouchable. And I get the best strategic mind I've found in a decade. You want to hire me. I want to partner with you, not as employee, as equal. Co-founder of a new division focused on emerging tech and risk assessment. Your name on everything, your strategies credited properly. The career Julian stole from you, but without the theft. His hand rested on the arm of my chair. Not touching me, but close enough that I felt the heat of him. Close enough that if I leaned forward 6 inches, we'd cross a line that had nothing to do with business. And if I say no after the wedding? If I take the immunity and walk away? Then I'll respect that choice and ensure you have everything you need to start fresh. His voice dropped lower. Intimate. But you won't say no. Rosette, because you're finally realizing what I've known since I saw your first risk assessment. You're not meant to build kings. You're meant to build empires and rule them yourself. The air between us was charged, heavy. His eyes held mine like gravity. I should have pulled back. Created distance. Remembered that trust had destroyed me before. Instead, I heard myself whisper, "When do we leave for Vegas?" 2 days. We'll arrive the night before the rehearsal dinner. Make an entrance that sets the tone. Between now and then, we finalize every detail. Practice until we're flawless. And you, he stood, breaking the moment. You prepare to become the woman who makes Julian Reeves regret every choice he's ever made. He extended his hand. I took it. Let him pull me to my feet. We stood there, hands clasped. On the promise of destruction and redemption hanging between us. "One question," I said. "The funeral, faking your death. Was that always part of this plan? Or did something else force your hand?" His smile returned. Dangerous. "There are things you don't know yet, Rosette. Pieces of this game that will only make sense when they need to. Trust me when I say everything has been calculated, including you walking into that memorial hall and proving you were exactly who I believed you were." He released my hand, stepped back. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we practice the entrance, the way you walk, the way you look at him, the way you make an entire ballroom realize they've been watching the wrong person for 3 years. And then, his eyes gleamed. Then we go to Vegas and make Julian Reeves wish he'd never learned your name. Unsubscribe if you need to see how this wedding becomes a funeral for Julian's entire existence. Drop your city below. I want to know where my revenge squad is watching from. Part 2 drops soon, and trust me, the rehearsal dinner is where this really gets dangerous. Team Rosette or Team Ji-Hoon has more secrets? Let me know in the comments.